We've got a cracker of a show coming up for you on this week's edition of Off the Fence, where we get stuck into the long walk hurdle and dissect it. Will Champ go for the stairs hurdle, or will he go down the Gold Cup route? To hear Barry Geraghty's thoughts on that. He obviously knows the horse very well. Tony Keenan has some interesting selections for you over the Christmas period as well. We look at the King George, the Savills Chase, the Matheson Hurdle, all the big grade ones, and we cover a few of the novices in there too. Plenty to get stuck into. It's a show full of tips, and on top of that, we have two tracker horses for you, and it's only two because Barry Geraghty and Tony Keenan both agree on the same one. So that is not to be missed, all coming up on this edition of Off the Fence. But let's get stuck straight in. Quick hello to the boys. Hello, Tony. How are you?
I'm good, Vanessa. You?
Very, very good, thank you. Post a lovely few days in Ascot, so I'm in a good mood. And Barry, how are you? You were racing at the weekend as well?
I was in beautiful Thurles yesterday. I didn't see much with the fog, but it was a nice day out.
Nice. Retirement life is treating Barry well, clearly. Good day out on a Sunday. Let's head straight to Ascot and focus in on the long walk hurdle. What happened where over the weekend? Well, this was the big grade one of the weekend. And of course, Champ towed himself to victory, beating Time Hill finishing second for a second year running, and Champ is now 9-2 for the stairs hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival and a 20-1 shot for the Gold Cup. First of all, Barry, let's focus in specifically on his performance. You didn't have to be a rocket scientist to note how strongly he was travelling throughout the race. And I mean, it's rare in a grade one you see a horse travelling that strongly. We're well aware the stairs hurdle division isn't the strongest of races, but there was a good level of form coming into the race from many of the other runners. Yet Champ it's like he was in a piece of work.
It was. They didn't go very quick. On the blind side, led them along with Ronald Pump, so they didn't go quick, but I think that was the thing that really told was Champ's class. He was the one that travelled best. You could argue that probably played to him on the day, because there was a chance he was going to need the run. He'd been off for quite a while. It was also a first run back over hurdles, and his jumping technique was the thing I was concerned about. But at that slower pace, he had a good chance to warm up into it and find the rhythm, which he did, and Jonjo gave him a lovely ride. On the flip side of it, for other horses, Time Hill was very keen for a long way, and he didn't help his chances. And also Paisley Park would have benefited from a stronger pace. But then saying that, with that run under Champ's belt, he's proven how well he stayed before when he won the RSA. So off a strong pace now, you would have to fancy Champ to hold form with everything he met in Ascot. So it was a great performance by the horse. He did everything right, and I suppose it has to be all roads leading towards the stairs now. Whether they want to come back for the Gold Cup is a big question at 20-1, but at 9-2 or so for the stairs, he looks like the one to beat. But it's still competitive.
Look, you know this horse so well from back in the riding days. You know, you had a good association with him. Just in terms of him as my view on him is he's clearly a very high class horse, and 2 miles, 3 miles, hurdles, fences, when he's right on the day, he's obviously right up there with the very top notch level of horse. But he seems like he's not the most straightforward. And I'm just sort of guessing that from bits and pieces that you pick up along the way from interviews, and then obviously the profile of his actual form. Am I right in sort of making that assumption at this stage?
Yeah, no, he's a horse who has had plenty of problems over the years, but I think, and also credit to Nicky for getting him to Ascot in such good shape on the back of not an ideal prep. He was looking for runs and couldn't get a run, but he had him in great shape. So top marks to Nicky for having him. He has had his problems over the years, but he is a class horse, and he showed that last year when he was second in the Game Spirit Chase over 2 mile was a brilliant run. So no, he's a very classy individual, and he has all the options. But I think it's a very strong division as well. And as I said, Time Hill would be better for a better gallop. Paisley Park ran well, but also Classical Dream. I was in Patrick Mullen's company earlier today, and he was, I believe Classical Dream will go to Leopardstown, and he was talking very highly of him.
We'll get to a bit of a Leopardstown preview later on in the show. That's quite interesting. And just last question, Barry, on Champ before we leave him behind. Obviously, you like me think he should go down the stairs hurdle route now. If John Joe O'Neill Jr. gets another chance on him, or going forwards in terms of how he should be ridden, do you think John Joe will have learned from riding him at Ascot and be able to sort of maybe get a little bit more cover for longer, maybe sort of learn from that ride going forwards to give him the best chance of staying at Cheltenham and the best chance in a stayers hurdle?
Oh, I'd say definitely. John's gave me a ring before race and on Saturday to have a chat about him, and he gave him a lovely ride, as I said, but he will have learned. He had school of at home, but it's only when you go to a racecourse that you really know a horse. So he will have learned a lot from that, and as you say, I'd imagine he'll look for more cover, but the pace of the race didn't really lend itself to that, and the size of the field, where you'd imagine you'll have a bigger field in Cheltenham and it will be an end-to-end gallop.
Right, and then Tony, just bringing you in here, we had a question from Dean O'Connell, I think, who asked last week about the stairs hurdle fancies. It's a wide open division, we've covered that. Would Champ be your idea of the winner now? No buzz, sadly, because of what happened to him in the week. I know you liked him going into the weekend just been. Where's your head out now with the stairs hurdle, Tony?
My head's probably a little bit fried. I really think Buzz would have dispatched with a few of these, but I don't really have a betting opinion since the weekend. I was impressed with Champ. I thought he looked a different class of a horse, a bigger, just much more size to him than some of these horses. You can definitely see why Philip Hobbs' horse never went chasing, and Ronald Pump, obviously he didn't take him chasing. He lacked the scope. Just with time, Hill, I thought while he was keen, he didn't last very long into it. He didn't stay on the bridle as long as sometimes he can. So just wondering, is he in quite the same form that he was in last season? The French run might have taken the edge of him. Thomas Darby, got there, hit 2-1 and run, and then just put his head in the air. He has a tendency to do that. Wouldn't be one to trust. Paisley Park seems to be running these kind of standard races where he's coming off it and finishing out, but how do you bet him to win a race? I don't know. He's just finishing every day without ever getting there. Ronald Pump was probably the weird, interesting one for me. I thought the tactics were strange. He was his own worst enemy. He was so keen in the blinkers again. But he's never led really, not in recent times anyway. He's always a good come from behind horse, finish out his race strongly. He sort of tanked there for, 2.5 miles and didn't get home. And I believe it was quite interesting that to me, the trainer, they had to make the choice between Ascot or Christmas at Leopardstown. But he said the day that Leopardstown isn't totally ruled out because the fact they didn't find anything out on Saturday, which Matthew Smith, of course, would be a trainer with a record of bringing horses out quick. I know maybe more flat handicappers at Galway and things like that, but I just thought it was an interesting move that maybe they will go back to Leopardstown, mix up the tactics a bit, maybe change the headgear. I'm not sure he's good enough at that level anyway, but I don't think he got a true reflection at Ascot about where he's at. But yeah, Champ, of course, deserves his status at the top of that market at the minute, and would probably make much more sense to go for this race when he's trading at whatever 4-1, whereas what is he for the Gold Cup? Probably 20-1.
Yeah, right. Well, we'll keep an eye out for Ronald Pump at Leopardstown. Again, that will be covered later in the show, but it'd be interesting if he does go there with, like Tony says, different tactics. Let's move on to Jonbon in the Kennel Gate. Big talking horse coming into Ascot, and the big talking horse coming out of it really is now 9-4 favourite for the Supreme Novices. And Barry, it's straight over to you because, of course, your team Constitution Hill, but you couldn't help but be impressed. I know it was a bit of a fast of a race in the end. On paper, obviously, we were highly excited about everything that lined up, but then the race and the way it was run was a bit disappointing ultimately. But as far as Jonbon's concerned, I think Connection's relieved, and it's another step along the road to the Supreme.
Yeah, exactly. I suppose, people went out with their tactics knowing that a good gallop was going to suit him, so they all thought to drop in and follow. But that was the thing about Jonbon. He was settled, more settled than he was in Newbury. He jumped really well. He didn't go overly quick. Where in Newbury, when he did get to the front, he raced. Where on Saturday he seemed more relaxed, and Aidan was able to ride a race, dictate the pace from the front, and he quickened well in the straight, and he won like a good horse. So he is a worthy favourite. As regards Constitution Hill, you're looking at Jonbon on the back of 3 runs, where you're looking at Constitution Hill on the back of 1, apart from point to point. So albeit Constitution Hill's form is looking really good, and everything he's done at home leads everyone to believe that he is potentially very good as well. You don't have the same level of form, so you just have to you're taking 1 run on trust. So we'll know more about Constitution Hill when we see him next time, I suppose.
Yeah, something to really look forward to there. And I suppose from my point of view, I was at Ascot on Friday. Bit of a, I don't know, maybe a word of warning, I think maybe, is I was surprised by Jonbon. I was surprised by him physically. He's actually nothing like Duvan, really, when you get up close to him in a sort of physical sense, but more his behaviour post-race. I know it's been maybe not well documented, but there's a few whispers about the way in which he's trained at home. I think he goes up the gallops on his own. He's obviously not necessarily the most straightforward of horses. And then after the race on Friday at Ascot, he was in the winner's enclosure. He was very upset. He was whinnying away, which is just such a sign of a green baby type sort of mentality with a horse. And then he got very upset about the cameras. He wouldn't have his picture taken. He wouldn't even stand for a second to have his picture taken. He wears the earplugs. I think it's not necessarily going to be completely plain sailing with Jonbon just to keep all the wheels on and going in the right direction. Whereas Barry, you've obviously spoken about Constitution Hill being one of the most straightforward horses you've had to deal with anyway, and then seems that way at home as well. So I guess just a little bit of a word of warning there from me, just having seen that behaviour in the paddock at Ascot. But essentially, I'm picking holes. You couldn't help but have been impressed in Jonbon. Tony, do you have anything to add in terms of what the Supreme Market's shaping up like 9-4 at the top of the market for Jonbon at this stage? Any interest in that for you?
Not really. No, look, it does seem short, though. Look, I'm not going to sit and picking at traders here. If people want to bet it, that's the price to put it in. If people are happy enough to take the 9-4, but I suppose the interesting thing is the field size of the Supreme. Now, last year we got quite an unusual year. Would appreciate it only had to face 7 rivals, but that would be highly unusual. I just looked back there before we come on. There has never been a field of fewer than 12 since 1997, bar the last year's race. And
right.
the typical field size would be mid to high teens. So does he really stand up as been a 9-4 shot in that bigger field? You could argue maybe there's going to be a lot of scrap taken up, social runners and things like that taking up a space in the field. But it would seem a little bit short to me at this point. Although, are we going to see another year like last year when all the novice races bar the Albert Bartlett were these small fields? I'd hope that we'd revert to seeing a bit more competitive field sizes next year.
Bit of a word of warning on that front, absolutely. And then of course the idea of us all don't want to bring it into the conversation, but reduce crowd capacity. Who knows where we'll be at in March? And actually, it was noted to me that looking at Jonbon's mentality, it might be quite favourable for him if there wasn't a full crowd at Ascot. But anyway, that's something we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. All eyes were on Ascot the weekend, Tony, but Nace over in Ireland. There's a couple of horses you wanted to pick up there. You were impressed with Brandy Love.
Yeah, I thought Nace was probably the pick of the Irish meetings over the last few days for a couple of reasons. I thought Willie Mullins launched a few of his better ones at it, and also did soft ground, which hasn't been a thing. So I thought maybe the form from Nace might stand up a little bit better than the other 2 meetings that were run over the weekend. Brandy Love was very impressive. I thought she met quite a deep field in that mare's maiden hurdle. 1 or 2 of them didn't run the form, but some of that was her pouring it on in the middle part of the race. I thought in the main she hurdled very well and cleared away from them between the last 2. Concern with her, I suppose, is that she didn't back up a very impressive debut win in her bumper last year afterwards. But they gave her plenty of time off. They didn't give her another run after the Dublin Race Festival last year. She would think that she is going to be a player in that mare's novice race. The other, I suppose, race that stands out in terms of a classy kind of a contest was the Beginner's Chase, in which Gaillard de Menil got beaten. I thought he had no excuses. Most of these Willie Mullins novices seem to be pretty straight for their first run back, at least to do themselves justice. He jumped the first couple a little bit sticky, but he jumped fine from there on in. I thought when he got the lead at the second last, he'd just go and finish it out, but he didn't. He was in what was typically the right part of the track on the Nace Chase track, more towards the stands rail. I'd say he actually might even be flattered by his proximity to the 1-2, who the market wouldn't give anywhere near as much a chance. I was really impressed with Capodanno. I thought he made a really bad mistake 2 out. And just it was a testament, I suppose, to his agility that he stayed in his feet. Jockey gave him a bit of time to come back into it, jumped the last fine, and has then just picked up really well. And again, he's kind of on what is usually the wrong side of the track down the inner. As one going away, I really was very impressed with that. And also the fact that 2 miles 3 would be very much at the thin end of his stamina spectrum. So better to come for him up and trip. William Muns has actually been really positive with him in a stable tour as well. So yeah, I think he's going to be a big player in those staying novice chases. It was an excellent reappearance from him.
Oh, very high praise indeed from Tony. We'll keep Capodanno. We'll look forward to seeing Capodanno back out, and Brandy Love. 10-1 for the Mares Novices Hurdle for Brandy Love. Let's move on. We're going to move on to the Christmas racing preview. But before we do, Barry, very quick word on Rachel Blackmore. I mean, I don't really know what more there is to add. Obviously, she takes away BBC Sports World Personality of the Year. A huge accolade for her, beating a load of top names, Djokovic, Tom Brady, endless other big names in there. And she didn't even make it in time because she was riding one in a handicap chase in Thurles. So that probably sums her up, I think. But do you have anything more to add that hasn't been said already, Barry?
Not an awful lot. She's brilliant. She's been brilliant for everything. But I was in Thurles, I saw her running from the parade ring to the Wareham. Obviously catching a flight. I think she got as far as Manchester Airport, but had to do the rest online. But hopefully she made the after show party, because that was the only thing she got beaten in all year, I think.
Yeah, I think a plane might have been delayed. Can you imagine the frustration, Tony, if you're sat on the runway and you're waiting and you think you might be in with a chance of collecting an award like that and you can't do anything because of Ryanair? I mean, Jesus, I'd be tearing my hair out. But anything more to add, Tony?
Well, she's probably done Ryanair a few favours over the years. You think they would have sorted that out for her, but I suppose they can't control the weather. Oh, look, I suppose in the last while in racing and in other sports, we've learned sometimes that, glamorising or, making sports participants out to be heroes, sometimes they've got feet of clay and it's maybe not the ideal thing to do. But look, she just seems so wholesome, so genuine and so tough at the same time. It's a great story. I was more focused on the Irish sports personality of the year on Saturday evening and a couple of takeaways. Like, it was a deep field. Like Kelly Harrington there is an amazing story. She's got great charisma. She's from an area that, that lends itself to a great narrative. Like the Mead ladies GAA team, what a team. Like, they were just one of the great performances of the year in Croke Park, beating Dublin in upset. And yet it never seemed to be any doubt that Rachel Blackmore was going to win this. I think it's also a good sign for racing. It still shows that racing has a little bit of a cachet there, in Ireland. It's still considered a massive sport. There's only been 2 racing winners of this over the years. Tony Mackay won it and Barry won it. We'll not forget to mention that. So that it's
Barry won it. Whoa. Barry won it.
Yeah, it was back in black and white then, racing. Yeah, 2003.
Wow. What had you won that year to win as in what had you done in 2003?
Rachel beat me by 1. I had 5 winners in Cheltenham and I had the Grand National Monty's Pass.
Oh, that's the ticket then, just to win it, isn't it? Cheltenham top jockey and a Grand National, and you're nailed on for Irish Sports Personality of the Year. I get it now.
I didn't think it'd get me past Roy Keane and a few of those, but it managed.
Well, did it feel like a big deal? Did it feel like a big deal, Barry, at the time? Winning that?
Oh, definitely. I was 23, I think, so no, it's huge. And it's one you grow up watching. It's the Irish version of the sports awards, and it's you're watching your heroes and you see the list of names. Like for Rachel to be there and look at Djokovic and Tom Brady and these people, like these are massive names, and to go and beat them, that was some result. So when you're in that kind of company, you don't expect to win, and then when your name is called, it's a bit of a shock.
But even from the point of view, like Barry was winning that at 23 and it was brilliant for him, great for a young fella. But Rachel's winning this, she's 32. She's not a young person anymore. She's grafted. She started off the Shark Cannon. Like, she didn't come into some massive yard where there was, 150 winners to go around. I remember looking at her, and just when she was starting to come to be really well known, like, she was riding for every trainer up and down the country. Like, there was no one riding for more trainers, contacts up and down, and fair play to her. And just one very sad subtext to this, I just have to fish out. Like, unfortunately, myself and Rachel's betting relationship is over. It's dead.
Oh.
She is sorry, Rachel. She's just become another bloody Frankie the Tory. They're all too short. The public love her. Sure, look, they prefer her to bloody Djokovic and Brady and all this type of stuff. I saw a P&L there of Henry the Bromheads at the start of the season last year compared to the 2 or 3 previous seasons, and you just be doing your brain. So, well done, Rachel. I wish you'd have kept it quiet for another couple of years, because it was great while it lasted.
I love that. Well, look, all the accolades to Rachel Blackmore. I'm lucky enough to call her a friend. She's a legend, and I don't use that word lightly, actually. I think that word gets banded around, but she genuinely is in my eyes, and she's a true sporting hero. And the Weekends Awards just cap off what has been an unreal year for her. And the final word is just after the Grand National, actually, someone asked me to send a card from England and not put her address on it, just to see if it got to her, because like as friends we're sort of like, how famous actually is she? And so I just wrote Rachel Blackmore, Ireland, and I bet 50 quid it wouldn't get to her. And of course 5 days later, bang on her doorstep, she sends me a picture of it. So she was that famous back in the summer, so God knows where her star has risen to now, but long may it continue. She's a hero of our sport, and she's really running with it at the moment. Let's move on to the Christmas period, because no doubt Rachel Blackmore will be taking home some of these big Grade 1 prizes, and we're going to tackle a few of them right now. Obviously entries just out, but God knows who's going to run, what the weather's going to do. It's all up in the air. Small fields at Kempton, big fields in Leopardstown. Who knows where it's all going to end up? But let's start with the King George. Clan Des Obeaux looking to win a third King George. Minella Indo, Gold Cup horse in there with Rachel Blackmore on 7-2 at the moment. Frodon and Bryony Frost, of course, bidding for a back-to-back win. Frodon's currently 11-2 shot in the King George at Kempton. Barry, let's head to you first. Who's your idea of the winner of the King George?
I think it's a very competitive race, and a better race than it has been in recent years. Clan Des Obeaux deserves a lot of respect. They obviously had their tactics, we'll say backwards last year by dropping him in the way they did. That didn't work out. He was a good winner in Punchestown at the festival. He's a dual winner of it before, so I think he deserves a lot of respect. I would have a fear for Minella Indo that this is going to be too sharp for him. I think Cheltenham brings out the best of them, and especially the new course. So, and it's good ground in Kempton. It's a sharp track. It's quick. There's a lot of pace. They probably feel they would beat Frodon if they were to meet him again, but I don't think Frodon's the one they have to beat. As I said, I'd fear Clan Des Obeaux. Asturian Forlange, he's a kamikaze, but he was travelling best in the John Durkin when he checked out. He's a very good horse. And for me, Lost in Translation, I loved his run in Ascot. He had a wind operation after disappointing this race 2 years ago. He burst a blood vessel in the race last year when Tizzard's horses were running desperately. He was a high-class novice before that. I think 10-1, he's a great each-way bet for what I think is an open race. But Clan Des Obeaux I think he's a worthy favourite, and I just have question marks about the others.
Okay, so Clan Des Obeaux positive for Lost in Translations and each way bet 10-1, and it's a no from Barry with Minella Indo, but it's not from you, Tony. So differing sides of the fence here. Make your case, please.
Yeah, I sort of suggested him a few weeks ago when he was 5 or 6-1. I actually don't mind 11-4. I think it's fine. Look, Clan Des Obeaux, if he'd had a run under his belt, I'd be more worried about him. It's just whether Paul Nicholls can get him fit. I'm sure he's trying very hard and trying to do things differently, but his whole profile always over the years has been that he comes on for a run. So I'm just going to pose him on those grounds. I'd be happy enough that Minella Indo can get the ground back on Frodon from down Ryle. Asterian Forlange, yes, the ability's there, but he's probably going to do something stupid, which he's tendency to do. Lost in Translation, I don't know. Ascot, I think he kind of won a 2-horse race, didn't he? And Master Tommy Tucker was hitting every fence in the last mile and a half. You know,
he loves to do that, Tony. He loves to do that.
and he's still there with him, like jumping 2 out. You know, so Lost in Translation very much favoured at the weights, and then the array of physical issues that are there. What else have you got there? Chantry House, I suppose. He is upside. I wouldn't rule him out. He'd be the one I'd be most worried about coming out of novice chases. But I just think Minella Indo, he has the highest peak. The Gold Cup is the standout for him. Is he going to be the same horse as Kevin? I don't know. Probably not. Just quite as good. But I'd be hopeful that there is a little bit of rain due to come in from Wednesday on. And I just prefer to back the best horse. I think all the good staying horses have been able to get away with it round Kempton. Nothing kind of left field has come into it. Allaho hasn't come into it or anything like that. And look, I think if the ground isn't too quick, I just think he's kind of a little bit of a class act here. I'm kind of just betting against my belief is that maybe he just isn't a Cheltenham horse. I think his ceiling is higher than any of them. Des Obeaux was probably not far behind him, but I'm just hoping that he's not going to be fully tuned up for this.
I think you'll be pleased with the weather forecast then, Tony, because I think we've got rain from over here for about the next 5 or 6 days at a minimal, and I hear it's set to team it down on Christmas Day, so that may well play into Minella Indo's hands when it comes to the track at Kempton. Let's move on. Very quick word, Barry, with the Christmas hurdle at Kempton, because this just looks like a very weak division over here. We're expecting Epatante to go here, and unfortunately, obviously, sadly losing Silver Streak early in the week. That was very sad to hear about. That news coming out of the Williams Yard. He was a bit of a legend, and he's put up some good battles in this Kempton Christmas hurdle. He's no longer around, really detracts from this race, and also obviously goes without saying commiserations to his connections. But Barry, just in terms of this race, Epatante, I don't even know what else is in there that might be able to take her on, but obviously we're hoping that she takes a step forward from what we saw her do at Newcastle.
Yeah, exactly. And that was her first run back, and you'd hope for improvement because she dead heated with Not So Sleepy, and for me, his jumping let him down in the straight, that she had every chance to win the race. And as I said, she might improve, she should improve for the run, but I don't think the prices are a true reflection on the ability. He's up to a mark of 160, she's 153, so they're running off a similar position as regards weights. I just think he's overpriced, but he's a horse you'd struggle to trust as well because he could refuse, he could duck, he could do anything. But if he produced his A game, he's probably a good value to oppose her.
Interesting. Okay. Not So Sleepy to oppose Epatante in that, but what looks like it could be quite a weak renewal. Let's move on back to Leopardstown and the Paddy's Reward chase with Energumene taking on potentially Chacun Pour Soi and Envoy Allen. But Tony, I was hyping this race up as what looked like a spicy little contest, but then you very quickly put me back in my place, Tony.
Well, I just don't think there's much going to take Energumene on. Envoy Allen maybe on one or two others. I think Chacun Pour Soi will probably bypass it, and you're looking at Energumene being very short, and deservedly so, I would say.
Okay, and Barry, I mean, we all know you're an Energumene fan, so this, if Tony's right, could just be a penalty kick for him.
Yeah, definitely. As I mentioned earlier, I was in Patrick Mullins' company earlier on today, and he said Chacun Pour Soi and Energumene, one of them will go to the Desert Orchid, he felt. He didn't say which one. So that could throw a little fly in the ointment.
Oh, that really would, because Chacun Pour Soi back over here would be interesting given how he's performed on English soil in the past. Or hasn't quite, Barry, hasn't performed. And Energumene, Jesus, if he showed up, then that really would add a bit of spice to the contest.
And Chacun Pour Soi on his best day at home or anywhere near it, Envoy Allen, it's hard to make a case for him. He wasn't going to beat Allaho at 2 miles in Punchestown, so I don't see why he's going to beat much in Leopardstown. So if Chacun Pour Soi, they felt it was a physical issue, and they obviously feel he's in good shape. So if he was to go to Leopardstown and Energumene went to Kempton, it could be very interesting.
Very interesting. That really would shake things up. Right, let's move on to the Savills chase. A Plutard, Galvin, Mellon in there. Lots to dissect there, Tony. I'd love to. I'm sort of really warming to a Plutard now, and I'd like him to win this again and another step forward to the Gold Cup and see if he can get a little bit closer to Minella Indo potentially. But I don't think you're with him this time around, are you?
No, well, look, it's very possible this is just going to be a coronation for a Plutard. Brilliant horse for this meeting. He's won 2 Grade 1s the last couple of years and very much the one to beat. But look, my way into this race and probably the meeting at the moment is going to be the going. Like the watering on the chase track already. They've been watering for a month, I think, on the chase track, So that's what we're kind of expecting. Fairly unseasonably fast ground. They're in a bit of bother, I suppose, with watering in between racing and around Christmas time and stuff like that, because they've been in this situation before, particularly with the Dublin Racing Festival. There's years they've got it right and there's years they've gotten it wrong. But you're getting into this time of the year, the temperatures drop and there's potentially going to be frost. Do you really want to be watering when there's frost? Again, it's kind of messing with your turf as well. So I don't know. I think the ground's going to be quite decent. And the horse I have in mind, I think he's a bit of an each way price. There's Galvin. I know a little bit. He's only about 6-1, but I just think he's going to be very hard to knock out in the frame. He's had 11 goals on ground yielding or faster, and he's won 10 of them and was second in the other one. He's just top of the ground horse. He wins a lot, which is always a good sign. His form in the National Hunt Chase, where I thought he won it really well. While the second and third Next Destination hasn't run, and Ascari at 10, you didn't really get a gauge in it. Like Snow Leopardess and Remastered have showed the form in quite a decent light. And I thought then Ryle was all run against him. Brian Frosky Froden, a brilliant front run ride, controlled it. Galvin did, first of all, he didn't get his stamina tested enough, and second of all, the ground was too slow. And then he's made a good move into it, and I think just the efficiency or the energy use that he's had to expend to get into the race to 2 out is going to cost him close to the line. And Frodon's a tough horse to pass anyway. So I just think he's by far and away the biggest danger. You have a load of Willie Mullins horses in, the Kem Boys and the Janet Hills. I don't even want to get into the guessing game, but which one of those is going to be that's the I always joke about the flat, and Willie Mullins runs 6 and the Irish Cesaro, which are the Nace November handicap. Like, just strike a line through the race. I don't want to know, because it'll be the one I least fancy. It'll go and win it. Like, I just only want to try. But I do think Galvin is one that will run a race here as long as the ground is decent, and still has a little bit of upside. He's only just out of his novice season. I think there's a little bit left to come with him.
Okay, well, Galvin for Tony, and then if we're wanting to know what might show up from the Willie Mullins yard, then let's hand over to Barry, seeing as he seems to have the inside line, having hung out in all the right places. What do you fancy in the Savills Chase, Barry, please?
Sure, it's hard to get away from the favourite, A Plus Tard. He was so good in Haydock, and for me, he improved through last season, and you could argue that Mellon and Kemboy got a run on the field in this race last year, and it made it harder work for A Plus Tard to come from where he was. They probably were ball watching Allaho. So for me, he's different class. I'd agree with Tony as regards it's a guessing game as regards what's going to turn up, be it Delta Work, Kemboy, Mellon, which of them horses will win it. Like, you have the last 3 winners of the race lining up, but for me there's only one horse to be on. Tony makes interesting points about Galvin. I'd love to see him run well, but no, there's a standard horse, and that's A Plus Tard.
Yeah, I'm team A Plus Tard as well. Let's move on to Leopardstown Christmas Hurdle. This time we've basically got a load of sort of long distance hurdling types, all with a slightly quirky tagline. Flooring Porter in there. Classical Dream, obviously already been given a positive nudge by Barry, having hung out Christmas shopping with Patrick. Sire de Burley's in there. Abracadabras. And Tony, you think plenty of these could turn up. And of course the aforementioned Ronald Pump, if he shows up as well.
Yeah, I'm just going to pass this over to Barry. This is bloody impossible. I've been looking at this for a fortnight trying to find a bet. I just need to put a line through it and look at something else. So if Barry wants to pick something out of this, knock yourself out.
Whoa. Hang on. Sorry, Tony. I'm not giving you a free pass on this, because we've discussed this being a wide open division, and you've made good cases for plenty of these before. You were with Abracadabras a couple of weeks ago. What's gone amiss there?
I just think this race has been the target, but sure. Do you want to take a chance that he's going to stay the trip? I don't know if he is. If he isn't, the ground will suit. And as I say, it is the aim. But yeah, I'm happy enough to just sit this out. You do have that option, Vanessa.
Okay. Thanks. Sometimes I need reminding of that, Tony. Thank you, Barry. Any strong interest in this? Wide open.
I'm a big Florent Porter fan. He won the Stairs Hurdle last year. He won this race as a 5-year-old, and everyone thought he got a freebie, and then he went and he won the Stairs. So he won the Stairs as a 6-year-old. He's coming back here 6 turning 7. He's going to have improved. I thought he was his usual lunatic self in Navan, ducking round and making life difficult. And it looked like he gave a blow across the top, got a second win down to the third last, and thought he was a 747, picked up and dived into it. So he's a horse I like an awful lot, and he's the one I would have thought to be on in this race. But while we were just heading for the cashier, myself and Patrick, today, while out shopping, he was Classical Dream, just talking about him as regards his Punchestown win, and then he started to make a comparison. He could be maybe a Big Bucks or an English Dreamer. So that's the regard he's held in.
Oh, bloody hell, Paddy's obviously been on the mulled wine on the shopping trip. Okay, but we'll take that then. So you're a Classical Dream fan, and that is, all joking aside, some strong Well, you're a Flooring Porter
Yeah.
fan, sorry, but you're just getting the strong vibe about Classical Dream.
I'm not feeling so brave about Flooring Porter now after hearing that.
Okay. Interesting info. Let's move on to the Matheson hurdle. Sharjah taking on Zana here, but it's Echoes and Rain, Tony, that's caught your eye. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit ignorant about this. As we were saying last week, I just think the Morgiana form, you can't draw anything from. Sharjah's been an amazing horse around Leopardstown, and in all likelihood, he's probably just going to go and win it again. But Echoes and Rain is 8-1. She's probably a value loser, but I just think you found out nothing about her in Punchestown. She was too keen off a break and no pace at all. I think to get a little bit of a gallop here. Petit Mouchoir was in the field there when I last checked. I think he's due to come back in this race. He'd be a little bit of a help to that. Stormy Ireland maybe, because she can't run in the mares race at the meeting due to it being she can't run in any race for mares. It's not a grade 1. I think there's nothing there for her till spring. So the two of them would make it a little bit of a pace. I just don't think Echoes' Rain is as bad as she looked in Punchestown. And she was so brilliant in Fairy House last year. I think getting back into a properly run race could see it a better effect. I would just take the chance rather than just going with the obvious. Like maybe Sharjah will just go and win, but I'd chance her.
Okay, yeah, we like a bit of an each-way chancer. Let's move on to the novices, Barry, and I think we'd both be very excited to see Ahoy Sailor. Ahoy Sailor? That is not his name. Ahoy Senor in the Corto Star Novices Chase. And if he does take on Bravemansgame in that, then that is one hell of a race. I don't know if they're both going to show up. And I suppose my slight worry with Ahoy Senor would be if that track would really play to his attributes, that real sort of galloping way that he has about him. Any concerns on your part with that? And would you be with him against Bravemansgame in that sort of race?
I would be with him very much so. And I've just read earlier on, Lucinda Russell said he did an amazing piece of work. He was brilliant in Newbury. I don't think the trip is any issue for him. I suppose the only slight concern, he is a forward going horse and he's not afraid to take a chance. He did miss one or two at Newbury, but he jumped well in the main. But he won't have as much time to organise himself around Kempton. He'll be going harder, they'll be coming at him quicker. But for me, he's just got a level of excitement. Bravemansgame is brilliant and he looks class, very measured. But this horse just, to me, he lifts the roof a little bit higher. So I love Ahoy Senor. He's the one I'd want to be on. But his jumping will be tested.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Be a hell of a matchup anyway if they do both show up, but that would be a great race over the Christmas festival. Two top class novice chasers. That sort of trip is my sort of dreamland. And then back to Leopardstown and back to the 2 miles. You've got Fernie Hollow taking on Riviere de Tel, Tony. Everyone's sort of I think most people were pretty pleased with Fernie Hollow's chasing debut, but I'd be tempted to stick with Riviere de Tel, getting the weight, got the experience. What's your view on this race?
Yeah, I would too. Fernie Hollow is probably the much better long-term prospect, but the way it's set up for Sunday's race, Riviere de Tel has a fair edge. And also, what she's good at might expose some of his weaknesses, because he was a little bit slow with his early fences the last day, and she's just going to take off. So we've kind of seen that before in this race, where maybe the more naturally talented horse has kind of been put under pressure by horses that maybe jump a bit better, like Lorena was one here that would have been very well fancied for this, but got her jumping kind of taken apart early. But I think it was with legs and Notebook and horses like that. So yeah, I think she has something that's going to cause him problems. I'd be quite happy with her as second favourite. I'd say she's a bit overpriced. There doesn't seem to be anything else really in it. But yeah, hopefully she will take her chance.
Music to my ears, Tony. Love to hear that. Barry, let's move on to any other sort of in the novices division, just any other entries you've seen. Obviously, we could speak about Leopardstown and Kempton and all of Christmas racing for hours, but we don't have that time. So special mentions to any other novices you're looking forward to seeing, or anything else actually across the Christmas festivals.
Yeah, the future champions novice hurdle, the grade 1 2 mile in Leopardstown. Mighty Potter, who was third in the Royal Bond. Be very interesting to see him in that. Three Stripes Life, who was a non-runner that day, I believe, is an intended runner too. But I'd be very much myself in the Mighty Potter camp. I think he'd improve a lot for the experience in Fairy House, and he's definitely one of interest.
And Tony, same question to you. Obviously, entries out today, loads of horses that we could get excited about. Gabby Nacco, by the way, Tony, will he ever get his act together for us?
Yeah, well, I believe the plan is Limerick with him, and good old Limerick. You can always rely on them. The ground there is soft to heavy already, despite all the dry weather. They're already testing, so I believe that's the plan with him. I read that just somewhere today. I'm interested to see just the Largy debut. Is that form in Cork going to work out? I was just studying the race in Torres there over the weekend. I just came across something interesting there. It was just in one of the more obscure races in Torres yesterday, where the jockey had commented that the ground around the inner at Cork that day was a good bit better. And I started looking at the replays. There are a few sort of little bit freakish results there where maybe horses up the inner did seem to get the best of it. And definitely looking at the Largy debut, Kilcrit race much more out in the centre of the track. So I just wonder, was there something there, Barry? Would that have been a thing historically at Cork, that the ground would be better up the inner? Because I hadn't really registered that before, but just when the jockey had commented on it, I went and had a little bit of a look.
Yeah, I wouldn't have said historically, but you could have, ground that was watered, and the ground on the outside might have been watered during the autumn or so, and where the ground on the inside wasn't, and it was fresh ground. You could get a difference like that, but not historically, no.
Interesting.
Yes, just interested to see how that plays out. That would have been the big race that, I suppose, for the impact at Christmas, those two horses, like everyone was very disappointed with Kilcrit, understandably given the price. Just interested, does the form actually work out? Very
interesting angle. And then Barry, we must move on. Time is running out, but a quick line on the Welsh National. Secret Reprieve obviously returning to win the race for a second time around. That's what they're aiming for. Is there anything else further down in the betting that caught your eye? Who do you fancy in that?
Yeah, well, Secret Reprieve, he had a couple of runs under his belt last year, but it's his first run back this year, so he is a worthy favourite in what he did, but it's going to be a tall order to win this race on his first run back. But we're all tipping absolute hard for Leopardstown. What about Royal Pagaille, who was second to him in Haydock? Loves soft ground, loves a trip. I thought 16-1, he's been overlooked maybe.
Oof. Yard and belting form. Fenice Williams, I think, has had big Saturday winners up and down the country the last 4 Saturdays. She's in flying form. And Charlie Deutsch, who actually, Barry, you gave such a positive shout out a few weeks back for him on the podcast. Just think he's riding just so well at the moment.
Yeah, no, Charlie's flying, and obviously Venetia too. But no, I thought he's a horse. There's plenty in there with chances. The big dog, but the big dog's, he's 2 very poor runs his last 2, and he's about 7-1. I thought Royal Pagaille, who's form with a Gold Cup horse, is a different class. He'll have 11-9, which isn't ideal, but he's a proven horse. He's proven he stays, and if all this rain comes, he'll love it.
Interesting. And but Tony, you're with the big dog, aren't you?
No, I respect the big dog. I was quite interested there that the trainer had a couple of stable tours there in the press over last week, and he just said, like, the big dog doesn't operate in these small field races like the one he ran in Wexford, and I think he's run over hurdles since then. The big field, like when he won in Punchestown, Grand National Trail last year, suits him so much better. But the horse that I'm interested in, it would only be a small fancy, but I think he's a little bit overpriced, is Jessica Harrington's horse, Discordantly. He's another now that would want the rain, but he had a wind operation over the summer, and I believe it was quite a rush to get him to the Tri-Town. I think all things considered, he ran quite a good race at Navan on ground that would have been a bit quicker off the back of a quick rush preparation. I could see him running well at a little bit of a price. He's a lot of sort of falls and different bits and pieces last year, but I don't think he's that bad of a jumper. The odd thing, there is a horse that just had a bit of misfortune. Horses fall in front of him, one thing and another. So yeah, I think he's about 20-25-1. Give him a bit of a life.
Very good. Bit of value from both Barry and Tony there in the Welsh National. Obviously live on Sky Sports Racing, Channel 415 over the Christmas period. Do not miss it. And if the government have their way, then we'll all be watching it from home. Anyway, it may seem. Let's wrap up the show with tracker time. Tracker horses. My tracker horse is Nigel Twiston Davis trained Guy. We saw him running the Howden handicap chase at Ascot at the weekend. He never jumped a fence, really. He seemed to lose half a length at every single fence. And if he could in any way get his jumping even just a bit sharper, then he's thrown in off his, well, maybe not thrown in off his handicap mark, but I think there's still a bit of value there in his handicap mark. He was sent off the 7-2 co-favourite on Saturday. He was well fancied to go close, and just from the off, he never got really stuck into any of his jumping. If they can get his jumping a bit better, I still think he's a well handicapped horse. So Guy, for me, is one just to keep on side. Don't lose faith in him just yet. I think a lot of people fancied him at the weekend. Didn't go his way, but one day one of these 2.5 mile handicap chases will do. Tony, I think I'll give you
I know
the next shout.
we'll do this fairly. Barry, you can go first.
Okay.
We'll see. We have the same horse here. We'll see who makes the better case for let Barry go first.
Well, the fact I had the horse Indo at 8 o'clock this morning, so I was ahead on my list. Tony was just copying me. So the short go.
Yeah, Tony never does his homework anyway, does he, Barry?
Well, I don't know. He was slacking this time anyway. But Henry de Bromhead introduced the short go on a maiden hurdle in Naas. Finished third. Jumping was adequate through it. He was a little bit sloppy at times. Travelled really well. Missed the third last badly. Missed the last badly. And was really finishing at the line. So he was a horse who caught my eye. He's going to improve for the run, both the experience, I'm sure fitness as well. It was his first run on the racecourse. So he'd be a horse I think who's got a future. He looks smart.
Tony, how many marks out of 10 would you give Barry's workings out?
10 out of 10. So the answer at the end is right anyway. Look, I thought he was a little bit of a Captain Guinness here the day he won in Avalon debut, doing everything wrong and kind of still winning type of thing. He hasn't won, but I thought he looked the best horse in this race. Steadily run a fair. He's got trapped wide early. He's had to make a mid-race move. His jumping was very erratic. There were some brilliant jumps and some horrible ones. Third last missed completely. Last he missed completely. But he still closed on the winner at the line. I think, as I said before, I think this Naas meeting looks like it could be quite good form just with the ground and type of horse that running it. Both Willie Mullins' winner had a run in France. And the second, Paul Nolan's horse, has apparently a big reputation from points. He's thought to be he's quite well regarded as well. So yeah, this thing should be a formality for winning a maiden hurdle, and you'd like to think he would be even better than that. You could be great class novice.
Excellent. So the two of them going with the same horse, the short go, and Guy for me. But that about rounds up proceedings, I think, for this edition of Off the Fence. You know the drill, viewers, usual thing. Give us a like, give us a retweet, hit subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss a single episode going forward. And from me and the boys, it's a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We will see you the first week in January, continuing our build up to the Cheltenham Festival and beyond. Thank you very much for watching. That was Off the Fence.